You know, you look at a rental property and it's easy to think, wow, that must be a cash cow. Well, I recently talked to a landlord whose story totally flips that idea on its head, and we're going to get into exactly why. So I was talking with this guy. He had a great property, owned it for years, and those rent checks, they were coming in every single month. On the surface, it looked perfect. But here's the kicker. When he actually looked at his bank account at the end of the year, he realized he wasn't making any real money. It was all just disappearing. Okay, so let's dive right into this, because his story gets to the absolute heart of a massive misunderstanding when it comes to real estate. We're going to call it the profit illusion. And this is the trap so many people fall into, right? You see that big rent payment come in and you think, I'm doing great. But what that rent check doesn't show you is what you actually get to keep. Think of your rental income like a bucket of water with a bunch of tiny holes in it. These are the leakage factors that just drain your profits away. I mean, just one empty month, that's over an 8% loss for the entire year. And don't even get me started on insurance premiums jumping 20, 30, sometimes 50%. These things add up so fast. So let's make this real. Let's look at a case study. We've got a landlord, his property is paid off, and it's worth about $450,000. And he's collecting a pretty solid $2,800 a month in rent. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? But hold on a second. Once you start plugging all those leaks, property taxes, insurance, a new furnace here, a couple weeks of vacancy there, management fees, his actual monthly expenses average out to over $1,500. That's more than half the rent, just gone. Poof. So that big, beautiful $2,800 rent check suddenly shrinks down to just under $1,300 in actual take-home profit. He thought he had this amazing income machine, but the reality? It was something else entirely. Now, this is where that profit illusion becomes a much bigger deal, especially when we start talking about retirement. Because once you stop working, the entire game changes. See, before you retire, you're all about growth, right? Building up your assets. But in retirement, the goal completely shifts. What you need is steady, reliable income. You need cash flow you can absolutely count on month in and month out. And this right here illustrates the danger perfectly. Rental income can be, well, lumpy and unpredictable. So what happens if a $15,000 roof replacement hits you in your very first year of retirement? An event like that can force you to drain your other savings. And at that stage, you just don't have time to recover. It's a risk a lot of retirees just can't afford to take. And this all leads to a situation that a lot of longtime property owners find themselves in. They have this really valuable asset on paper, but it doesn't actually give them the lifestyle they dreamed of. This is the million-dollar question you have to ask yourself. All that money, all that equity that's tied up in your property, is it really working for you, or are you actually working for it? For the landlord in our example, his $450,000 asset was only kicking off a 3.4% return on his equity. I mean, you can find conservative financial strategies that might do better than that, and they don't come with the headaches of tenants, toilets, and late-night repair calls. He was the textbook definition of equity-rich but cash poor. But here's the good news. You can actually figure this out for your own situation. This is a super simple 4-step audit that helps you cut right through the noise. It makes you look at all the costs. And yeah, that includes putting a value on your own time and effort to see what your true return on equity really is. So what do you do if you run the numbers and, well, they're not so great? It really comes down to a shift in your thinking, from focusing on the asset itself to focusing on the income it can reliably generate for you. Just look at this side-by-side comparison. On the left, a $500,000 rental property, after all the expenses, nets about $1,600 a month. On the right, that exact same equity is put into a strategy focused purely on income. With zero operating expenses, the net monthly income is almost $3,000. That's a massive difference in actual spendable cash every month. Now, this is just about understanding the options. It's not a sales pitch, but strategies like these are specifically engineered to turn a lump sum asset into a predictable income stream. For instance, some annuities are designed with a floor to protect your initial investment from market downturns, in exchange for a cap on the potential upside. The whole point is predictability and cash flow, not chasing wild, risky growth. So at the end of the day, what this all comes down to is looking at your assets through a new lens, especially as you get closer to retirement. It's not just about what you own, it's about what your assets are actually doing for you. And this is the final question to really ask yourself. Is your property an efficient, productive worker, generating the income you need for the life you want? Or has it kind of become a weight, trapping your money and demanding your time for a pretty low return? The answer is going to be different for everyone. If this whole idea of turning assets into reliable income got you thinking, there's a free guide linked below that goes into these concepts in a lot more detail. Thanks so much for your time.